the biggest thing for me about Endgame, which I thought was fascinating, was like I'm not even a superhero fan per se. I don't
Yeah.
love the Marvel movies. Again, my favorite character has always been, and spoiler alert if you haven't, it's been 13 months, but spoiler alert if you haven't seen Endgame yet, I suggest you
Everyone's seen it.
you
Just say
pause.
it.
Everyone's seen Endgame pretty much, but Iron Man has always been my favorite
Same
superhero
here.
personally. Again, I'm a very casual superhero fan. I don't like most of the movies per se, but
I
I
like
mean,
all the movies. There's like two bad Marvel movies ever.
but I mean, watching Endgame though, again, like it wasn't perfect. It had a lot of flaws. But in the end,
Eh.
I think it was a satisfying conclusion, and the experience of seeing when Captain America grabbed Thor's hammer. I was just thinking about that tonight when he grabbed his hammer. Remember when he caught it
Yeah,
at the
Steve.
very
Yeah.
end? When Captain America, oh dude, in the theater to see that, or when again, obviously the end with Iron Man and stuff, to see all these moments when Captain America went through time, all these incredible
Look,
moments in the
like,
theater were amazing.
yeah. As much as in that movie, as much as I didn't like the whole fat Thor storyline, like they really tied it up well at the end. Like the whole movie's fat, depressed, whatever, drinking, and then right at the end when Thanos is sitting in all the rubble, and Thor like goes all lightning, and Tony walks up next to him, Steve walks up next to him, and they're like, "Let's kill him properly this time." That shit gives me goosebumps every
Oh
time.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, I know
that
that was.
movie had so many good moments. Like I just remember sitting in the theater, hearing people cry, hearing people like cheer, like.
I know.
There's very few movies that ever happens for, and it's always like Star Wars, Marvel, like but like they like the Russo brothers, in my opinion, are some of the best directors of all time. Like
What else have they made?
they made all the Captain America, well, not most, they made most of the Captain America movies, the last Avengers movie, a
Infinity
whole bunch of
War.
other stuff. Yeah, they've made a whole
Yeah.
bunch of other
No, no.
stuff.
I mean, I thought so. I noticed that with the Avengers, every two have some type of issue with humor. Like the first Avengers was pretty funny. When I remember, it wasn't great, but it was to me it was pretty funny.
That's one of the best movies
The
in
second
the whole
Avengers to me
series.
sucked. I hated it. Age of Ultron was
Dude,
awful.
that's the most like underrated movie that
Oh, I hated
that
it.
Marvel's ever put
Oh,
out. Like
I thought it sucked. I hated
dude,
that
it
movie.
was a good movie. I mean,
No,
maybe Ultron wasn't like the best villain, but he was still very intriguing. His goals were intriguing.
he was
It
forgettable.
brought in a shit ton of new characters. He was not forgettable. It brought in a shit ton of new characters. Scarlet
Uh,
Witch was really cool. I wish I think his name was Quicksilver, wouldn't have died at the end, protecting Hawkeye. Just so many like new concepts. It set up Tony in that movie had the vision of all them dying in
that
Endgame. Like,
was
there's just
true.
so
That
much
was
setting
true.
up that
That was
happened
the
in that movie.
precursor.
And also the
Yes.
Hulkbuster versus Hulk when he's all raged out by Scarlet Witch, her shit
It's
like
been so long since I've seen it. I don't even remember that well, but I remember just
Tony
the one
versus
thing. I remember the
Banner.
humor in that movie being really off. Like I remember the humor being so bad
Nah,
in
dude, that
Age
movie
of
had some
Ultron.
good fucking like at the
Nah,
beginning the Stan Lee really okay when they're all trying to pick up the hammer, that's pretty funny.
I I
Stan
didn't.
Lee gets like destroyed on Asgardian like liquor or whatever like that. There's some pretty funny moments in that movie.
I don't know. For me, like I thought Age of Ultron and Endgame both were not very
Hmm.
funny at all. I hated Endgame. I thought every part of the humor of Endgame was awful. I'll say Infinity War was by far the
Uh,
funniest. Infinity War was objectively the best movie, but Endgame
yeah,
was
Infinity
so
War was better than Endgame
good.
objectively
Okay,
from
we
a
agree
movie
on that.
standpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean Endgame was so grandiose though. It
it was
brought a
so good.
satisfying
Like
conclusion. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I
they
mean,
really tied it up with a bow in Endgame. But yeah, if we're talking from like a movie standpoint, like there's nothing better than watching like Thor. It's kind of weird. Like he had the best story arc in Infinity War, and then in Endgame it kind of took a dip. But in Infinity War, like it was so cool. Like he gets the hammer, and then he comes in with Rocket and Groot on his shoulders, and he's like he throws it, and it kills all the guys around him. It spins
yeah,
around like
yeah, it was cool.
that moment of him entering Wakanda on the from the Bifrost, is it the Bifrost, I think,
Hmm.
is just so like it's so iconic. Like that movie, the directing in that movie was the best I've ever seen. The tie-ins with all the different characters, how they brought them together
Oh,
again,
and
was so good.
what was
And
devastating, of
the
course,
end was
when they
so good
fade
too.
away at the end,
And they lost. They lost.
they
That never
lost.
happens.
It was nice to see everybody lose for once, and not the good guys win like every other superhero movie. Again, I knew there would be some other part, but I didn't know how they would get all these dead characters to play in. You know, I mean, again, when
Yeah.
Spider-Man fades away, I mean that movie, I got chills on my arm actually thinking about that when he grabs Iron Man and he's like fading away, and again. That was a good contrast for their story arc because again Iron Man, Tony Stark was kind of like Peter Parker's father, at least in this sort of newer
Yeah, because there is no Uncle
setup.
whatever his name is, Ben.